power steering. Here's his teammate, Charles Leclerc, on the track.
And those F2 cars are literally, they're a handful.
Oh, yeah.
To cope with that lack of power steering. The steering fights you all the time.
Charles Leclerc then out on the track, fastest first sector and a personal best in the middle sector. On the medium tyre, we've seen both of the Red Bull drivers come out, Sergio Perez and Max Verstappen on the soft tyres, and 0.2 of a second between them. George Russell 0.3 down on Sergio Perez. Leclerc next to cross the line and will do so and go 3.5 faster than Sergio Perez. And the track temperature now 39.3. It's getting a little cooler. The sun is dropping down in the sky right into my eyes at the moment as we can watch the sunset here in our commentary box. But it's getting to be a very agreeable time of the day, temperature-wise.
Quite interesting. This curb is damaging floors. We can't see the damage underneath the car, of course, but speaking to some teams up and down the pit lane, they're saying that that curb on the exit of turn 10, if you run too wide over it, it starts to scuff the underfloor, the little leading edges underneath, all the intricate little channels that they have in these ground effect floors. But it's breaking small bits off and scuffing other parts that starts to lose you valuable downforce, suction from the floor.
So, Lando Norris, let's watch this run with interest. I wouldn't say it was the most impressive day for McLaren yesterday, and they seem to be lacking speed, basically.
I think they were relatively conservative on the speed traps in the straight line, but pretty fast in the corners. This is what we were talking about earlier on, with the downforce difficulties on this track. It really does sort of fit between almost two wing levels.
But I was trying to... We were in the conversation together, but with, with the DRS, that should still be negated over one lap, isn't it?
It's still a loss, but it's not such a big loss when you're running higher downforce and you have the DRS.
Yeah, and that's why I wonder whether they were running a bit more conservative with on the power unit side, because they've done that before. McLaren on a Friday generally run less mode, basically, less powerful mode.
24 races this year, and I think teams encouraging themselves to be a little bit more conservative with their Friday modes. They have got 4 complete power units, but you need to be getting them to the end of the season if you can. 12% banking around the corner at turn 13 for Ollie Bearman.
And he's really pushing on. It's great to see. He's committed with the steering on the input. He's fighting the car to a small degree. Is what you need around this track. He's not letting the car drive him. He's definitely on top of this.
I think they put a bit of fuel in now to just send him for a bit of a run before he does a low fuel run at the end of the session. 3 seconds off in the first 2 sectors indicates that.
And it would make sense, because riding on board before turn 13, you just heard the revs dip down a bit. That's the D-rates kicking in a bit of regen.
And he's on that same set of tyres which are now done 10 laps. So yeah, this is arguably the more important thing for Oliver Bearman, actually, just to understand how to manage the hybrid systems. You know, the teams have all got different, what they call strategies. You'll often hear the abbreviation STRAT, where they combine the electrical power combined with the internal combustion engine, and it's about just managing that through the entire Grand Prix distance. It's tough around here. 80% of the lap is spent at full throttle, so it is a track where you are somewhat limited, and as Anthony said, if you get that slightly wrong, you'll go into what's known as D-rates at the end of the straight and run out of the electrical juice.
The good thing is for Bearman and the team is that they would have had the data from Sainz yesterday on the long runs and from FP1 as well. So in terms of tuning where you get the D-rates and where you get the deployment from the battery, and from Leclerc's side of the garage, of course, a lot of the homework has already been done and it's locked in for the rest of the weekend.
Fernando Alonso fastest in FP2 yesterday, and he did hint a little that Aston Martin were a touch more aggressive maybe than some of their rivals in engine mode and fuel loads that he was carrying. Still an impressive day for him and his team. And whilst we concentrate on Alonso's race run there, Max Verstappen just gone purple for the middle sector. He did go off the track at turn 9 on a previous run, Max Verstappen. We've not seen it yet, but continued on his way.
I saw in the corner of the eye, he went off track to get out of somebody's way. So he was doing the right thing there in sector 1 to get out of someone's way. He's
That's fair enough.
Yeah, as you said, Crofty, on the soft, so this should comfortably put him to the top of the times. I think it's still going to be slower than yesterday, isn't it? The track
should be at the moment.
Yeah, the track's still 8 degrees hotter than we saw when they went for their quali runs in FP2.
But it's gone down a degree in the last 3 minutes since I mentioned what the track temperature was. Verstappen to the line, 3/10 up on Charles Leclerc. I mean, he's your favourite for pole. Arguably, he would have been on pole last year had he not had that mechanical issue that saw him out in Q2. You're pointing at Fernando.
Yeah, just he was coming up to the line, 3 personal best for him, but he's clearly on a longer run on his medium tyres. And yeah, Leclerc's lap sitting up there on the mediums as well, just 3/10 away from Verstappen. Expecting Ferrari to be hopefully a challenge at least to the Red Bull, one of the Red Bulls. And Perez was certainly within striking distance all the way through the weekend for the teams in Bahrain. So hopefully we can see that split perhaps at this track as Pedro de la Rosa watches on, screens down there, Aston Martin with Felipe Drogovic. Another F2 champion, a driver that's standing around in the shirt. When do they get that chance? And he must be looking with great envy at Ollie Behrman driving the Ferrari.
I don't know when Felipe Drogovic is going to get his chance, and the longer it carries on, then the more you think his chance is probably not going to come with an Aston Martin team, who arguably would want to keep both drivers, if they can, for next season.
And it's drivers like that, though, Crofty, that are looking at Ollie Behrman and praying that he's going to do a great job, because they can use that as leverage to speak to the team they're currently and say, see, you can give a young driver a chance. Look what we can do.
Well, none more so than his teammate, Kimi Antonelli, in Formula 2. Their teammates there. Antonelli seems to be the next hot thing coming through the junior categories and in line for a Mercedes seat. So we're going to speak with Toto Wolff after the session, and I suspect that they'll all keep an eye on Behrman's performance, because that's a direct benchmark to Antonelli.
All these drivers complaining about too many races in 2024. Plenty of young reserve drivers standing around or jump in the car for a couple of weekends. Doesn't matter to the team, does it? They can still get the points that make for the prize money at the end of the season. Maybe that's an option to come. Kevin Magnussen, 3rd fastest. And I'd say that without too much surprise in my voice, because he's in a Haas, and we know the Haas can go well.
Well, but their main focus has been the long-run pace, and we saw that all the way through yesterday. They haven't showed their hand at all. They haven't been interested in that. As Komatsu there has now leading the way, and as a top engineer himself, he knows full well that you get the prizes on a Sunday, or in this case, a Saturday. Oh, is that just clipping? No, I think he just clipped the inside there, didn't he?
Too close to the wall.
Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah.
Front left, go.
Hit the
front
wall.
left.
Okay. You do touch. 5. Okay.
I can't turn right.
Yeah, good
Classic racing driver. Didn't start with I touched the wall. It's let's see if he's quickly thinking of a way to see.
I did wonder why Logan Sargent was back in the garage again, and why we saw him kind of standing there, but that now makes complete sense.
What goes to show with Stroll yesterday when he clipped the wall in FP1, how lucky he was to. I mean, he didn't completely get away with it. They needed to repair the car, the minor damage, but yeah, that's a longer change.
Or how strong the Aston Martin front suspension is.
It's true, isn't it? In year 1, when Fernando Alonso and the 2 cars touched in Bahrain, and I had him on the Sky pad, and I said, oh, you know, what about that? That was really close. How come the car didn't break apart? And he just said really casually, British technology.
Love it. Lando's on a flyer on the soft compound side. Go back to Kevin Magnussen, by the way. Don't be surprised if he does well here this weekend. Magnussen rather likes it in Jeddah. He's scored points here for the last 2 years, and the only track that he's managed to do that.
Well, I was saying to me that Magnussen's weakness has been qualifying. His race, even in Bahrain, they were pleased with his race pace, but he's always been that chunk behind Hülkenberg in recent times. So they're trying to help him out for qualifying. Norris, fastest of anyone in Sector 1, a bit slower in Sector 2. Behrman, by the way, really good run here on his long run. 33.5, 33.4, 33.1. 33.1. Very good consistency on what his run program is at the moment.
Which is what Ferrari are looking for, I'm sure, as Lando Norris makes his way out of the final corner. This is going to be there or thereabouts with Verstappen's time, but it isn't, because he bails out and he comes into the pits in Oscar Piastri did that yesterday as well. Just McLaren trying to disguise things, keep us in suspense.
No, because everything's got GPS nowadays. You know that the other teams, they can all use the GPS to look at his lap until he backed off. If you were going to this guys, just put more fuel in it.
You spoil every conspiracy theory I ever come up with hard facts.
I don't know if Bernie's got any meat on the bone with that one, because I'm confused why you would set fastest first sector, personal best middle sector, and then just come into the pits, and it seems to be a strategy there.
Yes, we did it yesterday.
Any news on that?
No news directly. No news
Or
directly
thoughts?
on that. No news directly on that, guys. But just interesting, I've noticed that you were talking about it. The McLaren have split the tyres across the two drivers, which is one thing. But often, like Corinne said, you do have the GPS, so all the teams have that information. It's like car going to go quickly around the rest of the lap, and it might just be a simple mistake or something they're trying to test in those corners. But I think that the entire paddock has got more intelligence now than just abandoning the lap and hiding the final sector.
And when you say intelligence, you're talking about IT support rather than their brain.
Not talking about David.
Right. You might not like my conspiracy theories in this commentary box here, and thank you, Anthony. You know where the door.
I'm just getting you back for yesterday.
You know where the door is.
You're just lucky I'm standing in between. That's why he's being brave, Crofty.
I think McLaren are sandbagging a little bit. I really do. Because there's a pattern. If one did it yesterday and they've split the tyres, as Bernie was saying, and one's done it today, forget the data, they're trying to disguise things. Meanwhile, what was going on there with Stroll?
I think Stroll got in Gasly's way there, so we'll see if we get a replay and a bit of team radio.
So it's interesting, I was speaking to the guys down at Mercedes about this system that they have in place now. We spoke about it, on the dash, So in a way, it relies on the mini sectors. Although every 200 meters, we've got it here in the commentary box. You can see every time. Oh, it is. So that's Stroll saying he didn't get the message from the team regarding where the driver was. And teams, it's at their discretion whether they choose to use this system or not. So it's not a fail-safe system, but the FIA have said the teams they're free to use it if they wish. Mercedes are one of those teams that have adopted that and using it here. And it's a clever system. You can see two cars in front, two cars behind, and you can tune your dash to whatever you want in that circumstance. So if you're on an in-lap, a slow lap, and you've changed your engine mode, you're on a regen mode, for example, the dash will change to tell the driver in big numbers or however you want to use it, where the car, who it is in front and behind, and the time as it updates every single 200 meters, and also the car in front of them and the car behind them.
So then, yesterday, why did Lewis Hamilton not get out of the way?
Because because first of all, he's in a whole load of S's of corners with Sainz stuffed right up behind him. So the biggest message he would have had was Sainz.
I hit something in turn 10. I don't know if it's the second plastic bottle or something. I hit something with my right wheel.
Yesterday, didn't we? With plastic bags flying around the track. Leclerc was the one that seemed to pick up all of those. And how does it damage the car? That's the question.
Right, thank you, Ant. That incident between Gasly and Stroll has been noted by race control. Might be referred to the stewards, might not. We will let you know. A similar incident yesterday happened with Lewis Hamilton. He got a fine, and Mercedes were fined. He got a warning. Mercedes were fined £15,000. It is always a problem, you know, when you're in a windy part of the world, which you are on the shores of the Red Sea here, and you're on a street circuit, which this pretty much is. You get a lot of debris kind of flying around, but you don't want bottles hitting you on your tyres or anywhere when you're racing at the speeds that we do here in Jeddah. Something of a lull on the track at the moment. This man is Fernando Alonso. It's Alex Albon going into turn 13. Fernando Alonso just come out of turn 27. Yuki Tsunoda, George Russell and Charles Leclerc are the only other three cars on the track. Track temperatures dropped below 38 degrees now. Now the sun's setting and certainly a lot of shade on the main straight. So we'll see some qualifying runs in about 5 or so minutes. And this is Pierre Gasly.
What is this guy? I don't understand what
Yes, the Martin
He
was
doesn't
doing.
understand it. He was alerting the race control to the incidents. Lance Stroll said he didn't get the message, and the stewards have said no further investigation for impeding there.
We see it time and time again, don't we, through that section of circuit. And also this last run down through turn 25 before the final corner. It's just, there are places around this track where you really have to have the messages from the team coming out, regardless of what you're running dash-wise. It's still vital.
It's just there are places around this track
telling
where
the drivers how much
you really have to have
how many cars from the section and how fast or slow they should be driving and need to be aware of.
It's just there are places around this track where
Alex
you
Albon
really have to
on
have
the track. Apologies there, Alex. Karina and I were just in a chat about breaking news that we've not been to in a little while. And we're going to talk to James Vowles on the Williams pit wall as well. Find out what's happening with Logan Sargent and whether they're anywhere near fixing his car. It took a little bit of a hit and they will desperately want to get him out on the track so he doesn't lose any qualifying simulation time, with the clock ticking now under 19 minutes to go.
You see from the flag flying in the middle of turn 13 that it's the same wind direction as yesterday, but it's much more gusty. I looked at the wind speed chart we had here earlier on. Just a few laps ago, it was down at 2 meters per second. It's now up at 4.2 meters per second. So it's properly up and down for the drivers out there, and that's going to catch them out like it did yesterday into this corner coming up at the end of the lap.
Yeah, 4 meters per second for those in kilometers. About 15 kilometers an hour and about 10 miles an hour. So it's significant enough to have an effect on the car balance here. These are extremely sensitive cars to the wind. So Alex Albon goes 7th fastest. Hard to read into that, Ant, isn't it? You know,
I think so.
Sort of in between Russell and Norris. I wouldn't expect that's where it's going to be when we get to qualifying.
They'd be very happy if they could be ahead of Norris on the grid, but I think they've got a little bit more work to do down there at Williams, or maybe James Vowles, if we can come to him later, who can help to give us a bit more insight.
So, Verstappen from Leclerc, Alonso, Magnussen and Perez. The top 5 are waiting for some more soft tyre runs. We saw a few moments ago Pierre Gasly and Lance Stroll rather tangling out on the track.
What is this guy? I don't understand what Aston Martin was doing.
And back live, Zhou Guan Yu has just hit the barriers. Fairly high speed and a red flag too, which is unsurprising. Dropped it, lost it, and went sideways into the barriers. The stewards, by the way, no further investigation for that impeding. But Zhou Guan Yu, at precisely the wrong time, having a skirmish with the barriers there, and that's going to take some fixing with qualifying a couple of hours, 2.5 hours away.
Looked like he just lost the rear in turn 7, and it's a corner that can be taken flat out in qualifying, but we were just speaking about the wind, the gusts of wind. Perhaps that had an effect on the car there, but you should be driving into a headwind at that moment through that part of the track. And let's see another. I'm sure we'll get a replay of that, but yeah, I just looked up and I saw the rear was sliding wide.
It's a very fast part of the track there. As you're coming through that sequence of corners, Crofty, you can see, you know, he had the snap at 7, I think, and then offline went through 8. You know, you're doing what, 250 kilometers an hour, something like that.
If you want it in miles an hour, 160 miles an hour minimum speed through turn 7, and it decreases. Then you can see the skid marks. James Vowles is listening to us on the Williams pit wall. We'll see some replays as well, James. This is the sort of accident that happens at a street circuit, and accidents come up you very quickly, don't they?
Yeah, exactly that. It's a very fast part of the circuit there. There's not a lot of time to react. Just looks like they lost the rear slightly, and it's a big accident as a result.
Yeah, medical car's been deployed. He's probably set off the G-force sensors there. Your driver, Logan Sargent, had a slightly less heavy hit with a barrier, but it's kind of affected his session. Were you anywhere near getting him ready to come out before the red flag?
No, that car won't make it now till qualifying. The track order needs replacing, and a number of systems need to be checked from the impact as well. So qualifying will be the next time Logan comes to the track.
James, how disappointing is that for Logan? Because actually yesterday he was only a 10.5 off from Alex Albon's time.
So I lost the car.
It's a driver
sorry,
that we
I don't know what
know
happened.
from last
Otherwise,
year
I'm
needs
okay.
confidence for qualifying.
Come
That's
in.
been a weakness, shall we say, against Alex. How can you help him here?
So you're spot on. Every lap around this track, what the drivers will tend to do is just build up lap on lap on lap. So by the time they get to qualifying, they're starting to take risks and go close to the wall. As you saw with this one, it was actually on entry to it, so I think he just misplaced the car slightly rather than a mistake of bringing the car or carrying too much speed through the corner. He's penalising. I think in these sort of circumstances, it's quite hard to get yourself reset and on the same grounding as everyone else who's done many more laps.
And James, how did you have to shift the program, if at all, with now just having the one car out there with Alex?
It depends on what tests you're doing. So we didn't have any test plans between the cars. So in other words, we weren't trying different setups or otherwise. So everything Alex is doing is just focusing on the program he had from start to finish. No change there. In terms of Logan, it's more actually what we're doing qualifying now to give him an opportunity to get up speed.
And James, can I just ask you, we're looking at Oliver Behrman there on the screen in the Ferrari. His teammate Kimi Antonelli is someone you know very well from your previous role at Mercedes. How much are you keeping an eye on him, and how much do you think the other team bosses are keeping an eye on what he does this weekend?
I think he's of interest. I mean, he went out there with really no experience, just a few laps under his belt, and I think his first laps he did, the 30.2, he doesn't look competitive now, but that's because everyone else has gone out on soft tyres multiple times. It was good laps, so I think everyone will keep an eye on him and on the remainder of the F2 grid. There's some good talent coming through.
What we need is a few more seats available in F1, James, but that's probably another political topic to add to another day.
I didn't hear a question in there, Crofty, so I'll let that one go.
At least he's taken his jumper off today.
Yeah, well done for taking your jumper
Thank
off.
you. It might come back later.
Excellent, and you'll come back later too. Thanks ever so much for the time being. I wasn't trying to make a political point. As a fan and an observer and a broadcaster of the sport, I'd like to see more drivers on the grid, full stop.
First time he's been speechless. You totally stumped him there, probably. Well done.
That's his new job, you see. he doesn't want to get into that political hot spud being passed around.
David Croft at his Paxman best.
Look, I know there's all commercial agreements, and that obviously, you know, money makes the world go round. But as a fan of the sport,
Oh, I'm with you.
we would love to see a few more drivers on the field, on the grid,
That's
taking
gearbox.
part. That's
going to be a gearbox, isn't it? It's a big hit on the
well,
rear axle.
So here's the question, though. Look, I know damage often looks a lot worse than it is because things are meant to break apart and dissipate the energy at these moments. But is that a car that is going to be ready for qualifying?
That's going to be a challenge, I think, Crofty. And it depends what it's done to the gearbox as well. And if that has to come out, there's a lot of work, I think, that needs to be done, particularly to the rear end of that car. The problem with that hit that he had, the car just sort of slapped into the barrier, and that's what really hurts from inside the car. It's just your head. We talked about the head restraints. That's a good shot looking back at Stroll here. The headrest full of foam takes a lot of the impact, but you're at your most vulnerable on a side impact in these cars. And it's triggered the sensor from inside the car, so we have to go to the medical centre as a result of that. So there are G sensors in the car, of course. When it goes over a certain load, a certain threshold, you have to go and get checked out, even if you get out of the car and you say that you're fine. So that kind of energy that went into the barrier there, nothing really did, from a driver's point of view, dissipate, because it just slapped in and didn't actually come back out and spin around again.
Yeah, the only upside is he's gone on the Tech Pro barriers, and there's actually 4 rows of the Tech Pro barriers there. A couple of things. One is they probably have a whole sub-assembled rear end here.
Sorry, Karim. So this will show the impact of, just watch his head basically when he hits the wall to the left-hand side. I do remember seeing quite a hefty whack right at the end. Just keep watching so that's at slow-mo, and you see the crumpled headrest. That's a lot of force that's gone through that.
Yeah, but in terms of getting the car ready, Crofty, I think they will probably have a sub-assembled rear end. So they could bolt on a complete rear end. Yeah. I think it will trigger a penalty, won't it? In terms of, oh no, you could get it from the pool early in the season.
Yeah, so he hasn't used the full. Yeah, because there's only so much you're allowed to build up at the back of the garage. And I only asked because he was a shoo-in for 10th on the grid for this weekend, Joe Guanyu.
Oh, God, it's going to be
Here we go.
stupid stat.
Well,
I'm going to listen to this and then go to the paddock.
12th
Go on.
here in 2022, 11th last year. He was a shoo-in for 10th. He didn't ruin my
Oh,
stats.
it's not as bad as some of the other random ones. You're not going to get your 5-second mic off penalty for that.
No. It's 10 seconds. All the guidelines have changed
Right,
over
right,
the course of the winter.
I'm
Off
gonna
you
go.
go, down to the paddock. Thank you very much indeed, Karun Chandnok. Once upon a time, we'd give him a couple of minutes and he'd be there in the paddock. Captain slow now, he's past 40. That's the thing. Oscar Piastri. He scored his 100th point and his 101st point for McLaren as well at the Bahrain Grand Prix, and didn't become the first retiree of the season, which is what happened to him in Bahrain last year. This is infuriating, and not just for those in the Sauber garage that have to build up the car once again, but for the rest of the teams who want to get out and do their final qualifying runs. Fancy a bit of that later?
Spin.
Fancy a bit of that later?
No, thanks. Stick to 4 wheels.
I did that in Canada once. It was absolutely terrific. Enjoying themselves in the Red Sea, which, as you can see, isn't red. Bernie Collins, I'm still not quite sure why they call the Red Sea, but you might know, I don't know.
I don't know the answer. That's definitely outside of my area of expertise, Crofty. I guess
I thought you knew everything.
The most interesting thing happening in the pit lane at the minute is that Toto Wolff has taken a walk down to chat to Zach Brown, which you might see on your screens at the moment. But what I was going to come in with is I think there's around 9 drivers that haven't run the soft tyre in this session. That is obviously going to be our qualifying tyre for the next session. And the driver included in that is Behrman. So he hasn't run the soft in this car. Because it's a red flag in P3, the clock is still ticking. So when we get a restart time, there's going to be very, very limited opportunity for all the drivers, including Behrman, to get that all-important run on the soft that is going to be vital to make it through that Q1 session.
That is a fair point, well made. And we have no idea of a restart time yet. Leclerc, Alonso, Piastri and Stroll, Behrman, as Bernie mentioned, Ricciardo, Tsunoda, Bottas haven't run the soft tyre yet. Neither has Joe Guanyu, but he's not going out again. Logan Sargent did.
It's been such a steep learning curve for Behrman. You might as well make it vertical, just send him straight into qualifying with a soft tyre.
Do you know, you know how sometimes things are just, written in the stars? Written in the stars, I wonder. Ollie Behrman wakes up, gets called up by Fred Vasseur. Coming to work, you're mine for today. You're not going into that F2 paddock. Carlos Sainz has got appendicitis. He's thrown into the car at the last minute. He has a storming qualifying. He gets pole position and becomes the recipient of the 250th pole in Formula One history for Ferrari.
Wow, now that would be a turn up for the books, wouldn't it, Crofty?
I mean, that is a story that, seriously, the producers of the Apple TV film couldn't even have imagined when they were sitting down to write the script. But, stranger things have happened in this sport. Down to you, Bernie.
Yes, so we're just, again, still in the pit lane. A lot of cars starting to get ready. We don't have a restart time, and I don't think they have a restart time. But Behrman's car, I'm not sure if you have it on your screen, but with the tyres on and the Mercedes beside it, ready to go out of the garage, there is going to be a big race to the end of this pit lane, because as we've seen, traffic on the outlap, not important. And as we speak, the cars are moving now. So
as you were talking, Bernie, session will resume at 17:25. Get out of the way, Toto Wolff. There's some cars that are going to be coming down the pit lane here. We've got a minute and a half straight out. Goes Kevin and Magnussen. And these are not garages that you can... I mean, Magnussen's lucky, he's right at that end. These are not garages you can get out of really easily because it's so tight down
Exactly,
there.
So you'll see the cars as they are, pulling up to the white line, sitting there with the red light on.
Ollie Behrman's just come out of his garage now.
And so this will be a bit of a taster, won't it? A bit of an hors d'oeuvre before qualifying Q1. So will we see a bit of gamesmanship with the jostling of positions and making sure they're trying to have a free space before they go for it? I'm expecting a lot of that, the traffic problems on the build-up to the final corner here in Jeddah.
Do you know what? If they did it properly, I'm going back to the member of the Pitterati that I was speaking to in Bahrain, and they staggered their starts coming out of the pit lane, they could all get round and get a lap in before the checkered flag. Treat this like it's the end of Q1. They could actually organise this properly. Whether they do or not, I don't know.
I think they'll pretty much just stick to what they usually do and be as selfish as it comes, making sure that they get the. And look, there is Behrman with a shiny set of soft tyres. So they'll be getting about 2 laps in, we believe, with 5 minutes to go now.
Green light after Joe Granew's accidents. The barriers have been checked over and we can get going again. So, leading the way out onto the track is Kevin Magnussen. I do believe he was the first car that came out. He gets the chance, and unless anyone overtakes him, to prepare his tyres in the way that he would have wanted.
The one I want to see is Leclerc, because his fastest time still in P2 has been done on the medium tyre, and so as Verstappen's closest competitor at the moment, you'd have to say that the hope lies with him. What's happened to George Russell?
George is in the back of the queue, and there's the Haas.
Yeah, what was it Senna said? If you no longer go for a gap, you're not a racing driver.
If you see a gap, you don't go for it, you're no longer a racing driver. There was definitely a gap there.
Never push in front of a Brit in a queue.
Had that been on the M25 and had I been a George Russell, I wouldn't have been overly amused. But there was definitely a gap there. For Brits queuing, respect. See, they're still trying to fight out, but there's plenty of time. This is a madness.
Oh, is that because the lights have...
The lights have gone. You're right.
So they resorted to a
table tennis bat.
Beat me to it.
Is it a bat or a paddle?
Good question.
I'm never sure. Is it paddling, ping pong, and a bat? Table tennis?
It's a bat, isn't it, in table tennis?
Yeah. Forget the ping pong, it's the ding dong time. And let's see what happens out on track. They should all get out and they should all be able to do a lap. And look at this. But this is what Kevin Magnussen is just about to start his flying lap. So he's going to have to thread his way through a whole load of slow traffic while he's doing a fast lap. Look, as he comes around turn 1, there is the McLaren of Lando Norris coming out onto the track at the same time.
Is that Behrman? It is Behrman, isn't it? Going through. So this is a challenge. Sticks to the outside, gets out of the way of one car at least. And Magnussen, he's got more coming. Gasly and Piastri, and next up.
Right, down towards turn 13 we go with Kevin Magnussen. 32.1 for the first sector is the best time that we've had so far. That's a 32.7 for Kevin Magnussen. So losing time. And what was it his team boss was saying? The problem with Kevin at the moment is his qualifying, not his race pace, but his qualifying pace.
I wonder if he was just put off a little bit there, psychologically having another car in front of him through the twisty section through sector 1.
Yeah, potentially. His teammate's done a 1/10 of a second better through that first sector. 28.0 is the best middle sector time. Kevin Magnussen's done a 28.3, and he's now got lots of clear traffic, clear track ahead of him. Lewis Hamilton just going through the final turn is the next car that he'll come up on. 2 minutes to go. They've all got to the line in time. Whoa.
Right, yeah. The wind just catching the car there. He knows it. Is he just going to bail or just continue anyway? He continues, but yeah, always last in that final corner of the lap and crosses the line 3 seconds down. What are others up to out there, I wonder?
George Russell has just gone fastest through the middle sector. Here comes Ollie Behrman then for his one and only qualifying simulation lap before he takes part in a Formula 1 qualifying session for the first time. Man, take us through this one then.
Yeah, so they got the switchback, a left and then a right through turn 1 and turn 2, run close to the barrier on the exit, which they extended, didn't they, a few years ago. Then into another left-right, this time higher speed through turn 4, turn 5. Now through turn 7, that's where it went wrong for Joe Graneu. He survives that one through turn 9 and then 10 onto the curb on the exit. He's a bit modest there on the exit, could have taken possibly a little bit more, but we're giving benefit of the doubt there, just on his first run on the soft tyres. Into turn 13 he goes, use the banking to your advantage, and then let it run up high along the wall on the outside. Now feed the car to the right, then left, straight line your braking into turn 16. Sacrifice the speed in 16 to get on power as early as you can through 17. Minimise the angle of attack through the next section, flat out here into the next DRS zone, and build yourself up to one of the most daunting corners of the track. Turn 22, he runs wide. We knew it before he entered, and you wave goodbye to that lap. It's as easy as that, where it can all go wrong here in the Jeddah Street Circuit. So high speed, that's why we say it's daunting. He carries on with the lap anyway. It's all he can do because he wants to build the knowledge of the final corner. But yeah, shame for him on this lap, but meanwhile, others are out there going quicker.
On the plus side, he didn't try and make the corner and do something silly like losing it at that corner. We've seen so many people at turn 22 do that. On the minus side, this was qualifying, that lap would have been deleted.
Bailed when he should, sorry, he bailed when he should, and he knew exactly what to do in that situation. As now Verstappen, is it Verstappen we're with, or Perez?
Yes,
Perez, sorry, Perez. Through the final corner he goes. And up to the final DRS, that line we just passed there. Check flag is out. Whereas Perez,
third fastest by half a second to his teammate Max Verstappen. This on the second run for Perez. Leclerc still second fastest. Verstappen going quicker on this latest lap. Russell fourth quickest. Norris fifth fastest for Lando Norris. His teammate Oscar Piastri also in the top 8. I told you, conspiracy theory. McLaren might have a bit of pace here this weekend. Verstappen crosses the line, getting a slipstream. Final sector though didn't improve on his personal best time. So a 1:28.4 separated by just under 2/10 from Charles Leclerc.
Yeah, interesting there from Verstappen, and goes to show that third sector is really not easy to get right. We saw Magnussen mess up the final corner. I didn't see that Verstappen did, but we're going to see a moment here. Yeah, the onboard with Behrman picks up a bit of understeer. The car looks a little bit safe there. I think he's driving well enough that he could probably deal with the car that's a little bit, as they say, more on the nose, where the front darts into the corner and leaves the rear wagging around a little bit more. I think he can cope with that. I think they've maybe engineered a bit of extra understeer, a bit of extra push through the front axle to give a newer driver a bit more of a steady platform, as they say, with a more solid rear end to the car. And I think the understeer has surprised him in a way there. And actually, the balance changes sometimes when you put new tyres on, especially from compound to compound. And quite often when you put new tyres on, you go up on the front flap.
So bouncing.
We've heard a few drivers complaining of that, haven't we? Yuki Tsunoda was the last one I heard down at RB saying the car's just bouncing around so much. It's because it's a higher speed track than Bahrain. You get that flutter, that aero flutter under the floor. A bit like how a reed pedal works on a musical instrument. You blow the wind into it and it flutters, it makes the sound. And just seeing Perez just I didn't think he was going to keep as far to the inside as he actually did, with a faster car coming past him with Ricciardo. But you got the same sensation on the floors of these cars now. The ground effects, they run them super low to the ground, and the faster you go, the more of that aero flutter you can start to get into if you're running the car too low.
So what a 60 minutes for Ollie Behrman.
Good job there. Good lap.
It was a good lap. He should be proud of that one, and the team, rightly so, they're impressed. And yes, he had a mistake in turn 22, but I'm glad he did, because he's pushed the envelope. He's going over the limits, which is a really confident thing to be doing with a car. So if you're too conservative, you always question where the limit could have been, and you don't want to walk away from this golden opportunity still having questions of how fast you could have been.
It's what seven-time world champion used to do at Ferrari. Push the limits during the practice sessions. That's what they are there for. He'll sit down with his engineers and maybe ask them for a bit more of a pointy car, something that responds a little bit more on turn-in. Whatever happens, Ollie Behrman will be out for qualifying as the youngest ever Ferrari driver in a little while's time. There's a battle on down at Sauber to get Joe Guan Yu's car ready for qualifying after his accident. Williams should be able to fix Logan Sargent's car after he brushed with the barriers. There's news coming from Sauber as well that I just see what happened to Lewis Hamilton with DRS open down the main straight as he picked up a bit of debris. Car's bouncing a little bit under DRS. Just get some decent replays. Don't tune away. Simon and Karun and Naomi will take you through a debrief of this session, but also news coming through of Sauber and Audi, and Audi's foray into Formula One, and confirmation that they have a way forward to acquire 100% of the stake and the shareholdings of the Sauber team. Audi from 2026. On the grid, but maybe 2025 as well. We'll let you know that. The news just dropping. Max Verstappen, though, fastest in this practice session. He was quickest, wasn't he, in FP3 here last year. Qualifying didn't fare so well for him. He's got a 2/10 advantage over Charles Leclerc. Sergio Perez, half a second down. Same with George Russell and Lando Norris. Then comes Alonso, who was quickest yesterday in FP2. Stroll, Piastri, Hamilton and Ollie Behrman in the top 10. Woke up this morning, didn't even realise he was going to be driving a Ferrari. Thought he'd be driving a Prema in F2. Kevin Magnussen just on the fringes of the top 10. Logan Sargent didn't set a time. Joe Guan Yu didn't get out on the soft tyres. The race is on to get those two ready for qualifying. That is to come next with a young rookie and a 14th British driver ever to race a Ferrari in Formula One.
really don't have long either. It is 8 p.m. before qualifying here. I wondered what the huge crash around us suddenly was, and that was Ollie Bearman heading into the Ferrari hospitality just behind me, the youngster behind the wheel in the place of Carlos Sainz, and looking to back up his F2 pole with a debut in Formula One. Logan Sargent, another driver who has lost a huge amount of time, not getting a lap in, and indeed clipping the wall, Julien. He's finding the limits out there for sure.
Well, and he went over the limit, clearly. He went back to the steering wheel slightly tilted. So I was there in the pit lane showing. They had to change all the steering rack, changing the path, so he missed a good part of the session. We can see here on the picture. So he touched slightly.
This circuit under the night lights later on. At 8 p.m. and our pre-quali show at 7:30 p.m. For now, thank you very much for watching our coverage of FP3. Thanks to our commentators. We'll see you a bit later on.